So today we're making small batch bread pudding for two. And over the next several weeks, I'm going to be sharing with you some of my favorite dessert recipes that are perfect for your Valentine's Day celebration. So join me in the kitchen as we make small batch recipes with big taste. Hi, I'm Leanne. In today's recipe for bread pudding, I am using my mother-in-law's old bread pudding recipe, but I've taken the recipe and I've reduced it down for two. Now, a bread pudding is a recipe that has been around for a long time. In fact, no one really knows when it first originated, but back in the 13th century in England, they called it poor man's pudding because the cooks couldn't afford to throw away any ingredients. So they came up with bread pudding as a perfect way to use stale, leftover, day-old bread. Now, for our small batch recipe today, I am going to use my stale, day-old bread, what I had in my pantry, and I am using some sandwich rolls. Now, also traditionally, people like to use challah bread, brioche bread, French bread, a baguette. I've even known some people to use donuts or croissants for bread pudding. Now, since we're making a small batch version, I have taken just two of these sandwich rolls and I have cubed up that bread. And then I just you can let it sit out on the counter overnight. I just popped it in this little bag and left it open so that it could dry out and the air could get to it and dry it up. Now, if you don't have any dried up day-old bread, you can quickly make some by cubing up your bread and popping it into the oven at 225 degrees for maybe about 20 to 30 minutes until it starts to feel dry. You basically just want, for our small batch version, you want about 2 cups of cubed bread. Now, I'm going to use it's about a 9x5 loaf pan today, but you could also use a larger ramekin. This one's about 3 inches high, 4 inches across. You want it to hold a cup of bread. But I like to use a loaf pan because then you can actually get about 4 slices, depending on how hungry you are, 2 medium-sized servings or 4 smaller-sized servings. So we're going to use that. I'm just going to take my butter spray, and you want to butter it or just spray it with a nonstick spray. And then we're going to mix up the custard base first. And in a bowl, we are going to add 2 eggs. And I'm going to go grab a whisk. All right, got my whisk. We are going to whisk up those eggs, and then you're going to use some milk. Now, you could use what you have on hand. Today, I am using half and half. You could use whole milk, 2% if that's what you've got. You could even use a whipping cream. The heavier the milk, just the richer your bread pudding is going to be. So for today, a cup of half and half. Got that. We're all then going to add in our sugar, and I like to use brown sugar, but just a 1/4 cup, but you could also use granulated sugar too. Get that in there. And then we're going to add in some vanilla. We're going to use just a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla. If you prefer, you could actually even add in almond extract too. That would be totally yummy. And then we're going to add in some spices. I'm going to use, first of all, we're going to put in just a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And then I'm going to use a 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon and about an 1/8 teaspoon of nutmeg. Now, if you prefer, you could use pumpkin pie spice would be delicious. Kind of any combination, maybe nutmeg. You could add in a little ginger if you prefer. And we're just going to mix that up. Now, one of the fun things about bread pudding is you can dress it up as much as you want and add things in. Things like chocolate chips, nuts, dried fruit, even some chopped up fresh apple or pear would be delicious. But you're going to assemble this a little bit different if you're going to do some add-ins. And so I am just going to take I'll explain that as we go. I'm going to take my breadcrumbs and pop them into my pan. Now, if you were adding in some add-ins, you'd want to put your breadcrumbs into a bowl first, add in your add-ins, and then add in our custard mix, and then put it into your loaf pan. But today, since I'm not putting any add-ins in, I've just put my bread right into my loaf pan, and I've got my custard mix. I'm going to just pour that right over the top. Then I just want to take my spatula or something and kind of press that bread down in so that all that bread gets soaked in some of the custard. And then you can just let it sit for 10-15 minutes while your oven preheats and let that bread absorb some of that custard mix. And after it has sat for 10-15 minutes, we're going to bake it at 350 degrees for 30 to 40 minutes. So you can tell your bread pudding is done when you stick a knife into the middle and it comes out clean. Now, there are a lot of different ways that you can serve bread pudding. You can serve it warm, you can serve it cold, you can serve it room temperature. You can drizzle chocolate sauce over it, caramel sauce. You can serve it with ice cream or with a whipping cream. One way that we like to enjoy it though is with a vanilla sauce. So I'm going to show you how to quickly put together a small batch of vanilla sauce. Our first step is we're going to take a 1/4 cup of butter and we're going to melt it in a saucepan. After melting the butter in the saucepan, we're going to add in a 1/2 cup of granulated sugar, a 1/4 cup of heavy whipping cream, and a 1/2 tablespoon of vanilla. You want to stir it till it's all combined and then cook just at a low boil until it starts to thicken up. You want it to coat the back of a wooden spoon. All right, our bread pudding is out of the oven. I have sprinkled it with a little powdered sugar because it just makes it look a little prettier. All right, so I've got my official taste tester here today, my husband Jim, because this is his mother's recipe after all. Say hi, Jim.
Hi, Jim.
Okay, so now, as I said, you can make this, you can make it into 4 servings if you want. There is enough here, just depending on how hungry you are. But we're going to cut it into 4s. I am going to then take some of that vanilla sauce here. You want to hold that for me? That vanilla sauce that we made. Like I said, you can serve this with ice cream, whipped cream, whatever. We love the vanilla sauce. Drizzle it on. All right. Here's his fork. Give us a taste. See what he thinks. See if it's as good as his mother's. What do you think? 1 thumb? 2 thumbs. All right, thanks for joining me in the kitchen this week. Make sure you check out some of my other Valentine's Day dessert ideas by clicking down below, and we'll see you in the next video.